Well, I don't know that this is that much more uplifting, but let's talk about this Carrier air conditioning story because
Okay.
it's fascinating to me to see how people interpret what Donald Trump has done, what the lessons of this are. And just to give put the facts out there so that we can have everybody understand what we're talking about. Carrier Air
Right.
Conditioning, it's a subsidiary of United Technologies. It is in Indiana. They have two facilities there worth about 2,100 jobs. They had planned to
Right.
move these jobs to Mexico. They've already begun to build a facility there. The state of Indiana, for some time over the past year, has been attempting to get them to stay by offering them a host of tax breaks, not unlike what we see really in every state in the country, where these
Everywhere.
corporations are basically bribed to stay in a state. I mean, Andrew Cuomo was, running TV ads bragging about how we have no taxes for 10 years if you come here, if you're a company or something to that effect.
Right.
More or less
Oh
the
yeah.
same dynamic.
Yep.
Apparently, and Donald Trump used that Carrier and claimed that if I become president and these guys try and do that, I'm going to slap a 35% tariff on them if they try and bring their air conditioners back into this country.
Right.
Mike
So
Pence
much
is
for that.
Mike exactly. Mike Pence is still the governor, and it's been reported that the reason why Carrier took this deal is because they were afraid, and this is from the negotiator in Indiana, that they were afraid because United Technologies does about 10% of their get 10% of their business from the federal government on federal contracts, amounting to almost $7 billion. They were afraid that they were going to get targeted. Now, who knows where they got that idea from? They never had that idea before. Um, but
Well,
and
now, yeah, and I might depart from sort of the liberal line on this. I don't see a problem with that.
I got
I,
news for you. I don't. For me, the only problem I have about leveraging that federal contract is that that should be policy. Like
yeah,
the problem with this,
exactly,
first off, I don't like the
exactly.
idea of taxpayer money going to bribe these companies. But let's fight one battle at a time.
But that's the world as it is, and really, that tax incentive from everything that's been discussed is $700,000 a year, and Carrier said publicly that they would save $69 million by moving facilities. That $700,000 can't be the reason
No, the reason is
that
they're
they're saying.
afraid
It's
of
just
the $7
that's
billion
right.
dollars annually that they
That's right.
they and you know what? They should be. But the problem with
Yep.
this is that this is not policy. And so now we have
Right.
the president, like, because today it could be, I'm going to threaten United Technologies with their $7 billion
Right.
worth of contracts. And tomorrow it could be just some random company that's like, hey, maybe you should try out Trump napkins for your commissary. And if you don't, then maybe this other
Actually,
contract.
seems like a good idea.
I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
that's the biggest
Trump
problem I have with
napkins
it.
does. The way I see it, I think there are three approaches to how you deal with outsourcing and these kinds of issues. The first approach is the neoliberal approach that says this is part of the natural order of the sweep of history, and outsourcing is good for consumers and their prices, and it actually mocks the idea that you can save these jobs. And go look at President Obama speaking at a town hall meeting in Indiana within the last few months, literally mocking the idea that Donald Trump could save any of these jobs. And then read his former economic advisor, Diana Farrell's report for a consulting firm called McKinsey, making the argument that outsourcing is a good thing on balance for America. So that's the one way you can look at this. The second way is through autocracy, and that's the Trump way. That you browbeat these companies, but you do it in a very ad hoc way, and you use the threats and kind of a patronage kind of machine to get your way. And then the third way that you deal with this situation is democracy. And that's the Bernie Sanders way. Bernie Sanders has put out this bill that does exactly what you say. It codifies the fact that if you are a company that has your headquarters in this country and benefits off the infrastructure of this country and the rule of law of this country and everything else that this country affords you, that we are not entitled by law to give you billions of dollars of your profit margin in federal contracts. And we're going to take into account what you do as a corporate citizen in determining what those contracts are going to be. And President
we already
Obama
do
has
that.
gotten this
We already
in
do
many
that.
ways.
Right. We've already do this, right? With many different, like you can't discriminate if you are getting a federal contract, right?
Right. President Obama has signed several executive orders saying federal contractors need to pay their workers $10.10 an hour at least. He said that they need paid sick days. He said that they cannot have committed fraud in the last 3 years prior to receiving the contract. But when it's outsourcing, nobody, that doesn't come into play for some reason. That's part of the natural order of globalization. You can't touch that. Well, I think I disagree, and Bernie Sanders disagrees, and this is a fundamental divide, I think, within the Democratic Party.
Yep.
And but there is a difference between what Trump's doing and how he's doing it in sort of an ad hoc way, and how it could be codified and made policy, and do it through democracy.
Now the ultimate irony is that all of those other regulations that executive orders,
they're going to go.
They're going to go. So
they're gone.
Goodbye $10 1010. Goodbye non-discriminatory provisions.
Right.
Goodbye sick days. And I would even go further in saying what Trump is doing here is like I say, this should be policy. It is highly problematic, it seems to me, to set the precedent that the president can pick and choose specific companies to bend to his will on something that is not in any way codified. Like there's no policy here. There's no reason why he can't do the next one, be like, Mar-a-Lago really needs this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is right against the wall with like the chairman's flight, right? I mean you're the head of the you're the head of the Port Authority. You're the head of the Port Authority. And if you have the ability, non-policy, to lean on the United Airlines to give a specific flight to South Carolina so you can go to your weekend home, how is this different? If it's not a policy, how is this different?
Right. Let me just say two things. I understand and agree with what you're saying. But number one, it does seem that in addition to the stick of these federal contracts, that Carrier was also swayed by the carrot of the fact that they're going to get huge tax breaks because that's just going to be general policy, and that they're going to get regulatory relief to a large degree. And that is policy. And I think that was part of the pitch. But that pitch existed. Because, that pitch existed. We're not going to really look around at you. You're not going to get OSHA, anything. And you're going to be able to keep all this money extra because we're going to give you huge tax breaks because we're going to give everybody tax breaks.
Yeah, so, I guess.
So
but
part
I mean,
of this was policy.
Okay.
Number one. Number two.
But wait, let me just push back on that a little bit. According to the guy who negotiated this deal in Indiana, part of the Indiana
the federal I know.
He said this was all
Carrier
there.
said Carrier's statement said we think that the new tax and regulatory environment makes sense for us to stay in the United States. And by the way, this is only 800 jobs. Most of the jobs are going to Mexico. They're still building that plant.
Back and tell me it's raining.
Sorry,
don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
I know you're a Josie Wales fan.
All right, Josie. So here we go.
Right. It's only half the thing.
The second thing I want to say is this.
Go.
The second thing I want to say is this. It should not be. My worry is when this criticism over this ad hoc approach. I don't want that to trend into the idea that there's nothing that politicians can do with the power and leverage they have to get good outcomes for American workers.
I agree with
that's
this.
That's where I get worried. That's where I get very worried. And that was the Obama approach. So, we shouldn't say that, it's not sporting or it's unseemly that we use the power of the office to, protect American jobs. No, that should be the goal.
No, you're absolutely
right. If you want to do
right.
it in a codified way, that's fine. But
I think it's essential.
Let's not relinquish that power.
Yes. No, I think it's essential. I think he has now said it is. This is doable. It's clearly doable. We know it's doable, and I think really the push should be: this is not enough. You need to codify this. Why should right. Carrier have this treatment and not any other? It seems to me
there's literally another plant down the street from Carrier that's doing the exact same thing.
Yes, and I think
because there wasn't a video that went viral at the Rex Road ball bearing plant, it doesn't get as much attention. And this was a purely political play.
Of course,
Trump talked about this for months in the campaign. He had to get this. He had to get something. And so he probably, he overpromised on this, and so he had to do what he had to do.
This is the other conversation. Is the meta? This is
followed.
the meta conversation here, right? Because the way that, broadly speaking, Democrats and the left, whatever you want to call it, are responding to this is all over the map. It seems to me, and I think, this is part of the meta conversation that I think. The response has to be very, very clear and specific. And I think Sanders had a very good angle on it where he basically said that United Technologies rolled Trump, which I think is true. Look, $6 billion annually, $7 billion annually this company takes from U.S. taxpayers. If Indiana wants to give them more of their taxpayers' money, well, then Indianans should deal with them. But from a federal perspective, this should be policy. Like, you're not going to, we're just not going to give you business unless you're actually invested in this country. And period. End of story.
And
I think,
and let's be clear, because Sanders has been clear on this, it's not a win.
Right.
This is 800 jobs out of 2,100. This is one factory out of two.
I would say even bigger than that. He
did not fulfill this promise.
It's 800 jobs out of the tens of thousands that are leaving this country on any given week or month. There's no reason why you can't do this with all federal contractors.
Well, the other thing you have to think about is that why do companies leave America for these other countries? And, part of it is our trade policy. Since Donald Trump has been elected, the dollar has risen in price to a degree that if you do the calculations and say that every time the trade deficit increases, you lose X amount of jobs, and every time the dollar increases, you widen the trade deficit because your goods are more expensive and goods overseas are less expensive and therefore more attractive. He's lost hundreds of thousands of jobs already because the dollar has shot up since the election. So there is more to this than just looking for cheaper labor. I've talked to supply chain specialists and people in this industry, and they really say it's the price of the dollar. It's policy, like currency policy toward China. It's a whole host of other factors.
Let me add another factor.
Labor cost is a portion of it.
Let me add another factor here. It is a quick way for them to raise cash to continue. Yep. They have United Technologies has spent over $12 billion worth of stock buybacks. And when you have its former CEO getting a $172 million golden parachute, where you have the company's 5 highest paid executives last year made more than $50 million. God knows what the board of directors and the hedge funders are making off of this when they do these stock buybacks. This legal manipulation of the stock value is, at least according to Bill Lazonick, responsible for a huge portion of our wealth inequality in this country. And this is, there's a lot of reason to believe that the reason why they wanted to go overseas there was to basically cut these costs and use that cash to buy back more stock. I mean, there's a whole
tax policy too.
Yes.
I mean, when you put something overseas, you can transfer that profit and loss to that country, which may have a lower tax rate, corporate tax rate than this country, and so there's a lot of hiding the ball.
There's a lot of hiding the ball, but we do know
that goes on here.
Donald Trump has just shown us that that you can do this, and it should be policy, because otherwise it's just fiat and it's just whim, and that's problematic, I think. But I'm glad we've come to some agreement on that, for God's sakes. You know what? we don't. Yeah, it's so weird when we agree. We have not. Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Subscribe.